we encourage anybody to come and share in the education and the knowledge that we bring here on our program. Well, I'll talk a little bit about what NuView does as a service to investors, and then we're going to bring in our guest. And our guest is a very, very special guest. You guys are all be happy with the information that he shares. And I will tell you, I cannot match the energy of this individual. But I'll do the best that I can. So before we get into the actual topic at hand, let me talk a little bit about NuView Trust Company for anybody who is new. NuView Trust Company, we are a licensed and bonded trust company. We run our administrative services out of the state of Florida. However, we have clients all across the country. The product that we offer to investors is called a self-directed IRA. Don't get that confused with just an IRA. IRAs are IRAs are IRAs. And what we're talking about is an individual retirement account. And those individual retirement accounts we set up for ourselves offer massive tax benefits to us and help us save for retirement through an either tax deferred mechanism or a tax-free mechanism, depending on the type of IRA you use. What makes NuView different than, say, a Fidelity or a Charles Schwab when it comes to an IRA is that we allow people to hold alternative assets in their IRAs versus traditional assets. Traditional assets are stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and CDs. Most people understand where you need to go to hold those things in your retirement account. But most people don't realize that you can hold other things outside of those traditional investments. And those would be investments that are considered alternative investments, things like real estate, rental property, investment property, of course, land, commercial property, townhomes, condominiums, investments into opportunity zones, into syndications that might be buying apartment buildings. You can invest your IRA into mineral rights or even cryptocurrency. The list is basically unlimited as to what you're allowed to hold in your retirement account. The trick is you just have to find a company that's willing to administrate your retirement account for the assets that you choose to buy. We call it a self-directed IRA because we don't have investments to sell people, but the term self-directed is just a marketing term. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the types of accounts that we have here at NuView. So why would you want this, quote, self-directed IRA though? Well, most people look at the self-directed IRA as a way to have true diversification with their retirement portfolio. And what we mean by true diversification is not high-risk mutual funds, medium-risk mutual funds, and low-risk mutual funds. That's just diversification into one asset class. If you're talking about true diversification, you're talking about maybe having some of your retirement portfolio invested into stocks and bonds. Those are paper assets, but having true diversification and having the ability to hold things that are outside of those paper assets. And again, things like real estate is a great example. Real estate's a tangible asset. It offers, depending on the strategy, multiple streams of income. A lot of people would argue it's the best investment on earth. I would say that there's goods and bads to real estate, but it's really up to you as to decide what's the best investment for you. But at a bare minimum, whether you are a real estate investor or not, a self-directed IRA allows you more diversification because you can own alternative assets in an IRA at NuView that Fidelity will not allow you to have. So if you're looking to invest in more things, it's important to maybe have an IRA at Fidelity that allows you to hold the traditional stuff and a NuView IRA to hold the non-traditional stuff. The biggest benefit that we love to talk about at NuView, though, is just the tax savings that you get from these IRAs. A lot of people just think of traditional and Roth IRA when you think tax savings, and obviously there's a difference on how you save in taxes in those two types of accounts. But a lot of people forget that there's at least 5 other accounts here at NuView that we have outside of just the traditional and Roth. All of them have tax savings or tax shelter associated with them. And we'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. But at a bare minimum, an IRA, whether it's a traditional or a Roth or a SEP or a simple, or even say your health savings accounts or education savings accounts, these are all tax exempt trusts that you as the account owner can direct to make investments. But those tax exempt trusts aren't taxed like we are as individuals. So if you can understand how to manage and use these accounts ultimately what you do for yourself as an individual is save yourself from paying too much money back to Uncle Sam based on the money you earn, and shift some of those earnings to your retirement account or your tax shelters accounts. When it comes to investing, though, it's invest in what you know best. That's usually the best strategy. We will never tell you at NuView what you should or you shouldn't invest in. The most I will ever tell you is invest in what you're comfortable with. Invest in what you're knowledgeable about, or learn about something that you want to have more knowledge in. And that is a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about here on today's program, which is probate. And we have one of the best, if not the best person to talk about that type of strategy, specifically here in Florida, and how you can actually look at probate as an investment strategy or investment opportunity with your own personal funds and also with your self-directed IRA funds. So we'll get to that here in a second. But these are the types of accounts that we have here at NuView Trust Company that can all be self-directed. So when we're looking at this, obviously there's classes that we teach that dive into each account type and the different types of tax benefits that you get with your personal plans versus your employer plans versus your specialty plans. But all 7 of those accounts right there can be self-directed, and those are all accounts that we have here at NuView. How I want you to relate this to our speaker's presentation is that our speaker, Al Nicoletti, is going to talk about how probate can be a great asset class or a great investment opportunity for to look at. What you need to think is, do I want to invest in that? If I do want to invest in it, do I want to invest with my personal money that's taxable? Or would I rather take those investment opportunities and buy those in one of my NuView accounts and make the profits completely tax deferred or tax free? So this is why we do these programs. NuView provides you the vehicles to eliminate taxes, but we don't provide you the investment. Our speakers provide you with maybe specific investments or an idea or a niche on how to find these investments or where to find these investments. And especially if you're local to Florida, which is where most of our client base is, it helps you that our special guest is also from Florida. So this is going to be really, really cool for you guys to listen to Al Nicoletti. And I want to bring in Al now. Al, if you want to jump on, I want to just do a quick little introduction. Talk about how we met. There he is.
I'm here.
The man, the myth, the legend.
I am here.
I just want to tell this story because it's still a great story, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the first time I had the opportunity to go and attend the Jacksonville RIA. I will tell you, the Jacksonville RIA, not taking anything away from any other RIAs in the state of Florida, but the Jacksonville RIA is a fun place to be. And there's a lot of savvy investors that come through the doors there. I got the opportunity to come and actually speak on a panel of experts. There was 2 panels that evening. Me and Al sat next to each other, and we didn't know each other going into that night. I would say I was very impressed with Al because I had never heard about somebody talking about probate in such a fun manner where it was easy to understand, but it was also exciting. I can relate to that because I'm always talking about retirement accounts, and most people would probably say retirement accounts are not the sexiest topic on earth to talk about, but I think I find a way to make it fun. And this is what Al did with probate. He made it fun. He made it interesting, and he's got a ton of experience. And I just love hearing his stories that he tells because it's rapid fire, and he's got all this experience in working with people through the probate process. And especially for NuView clients and people who are attending, he's real estate investor friendly. So it's always good to have an attorney, whatever their niche is, that understands the mind of the real estate investor and understands what they go through. We had Al as a special guest speaker at our investor retreat. He was a day 1 speaker, the powerhouse speakers, and he knocked it out of the park. We're still getting emails from people asking, hey, how do I get in touch with Al? I got to talk to Al because his presentation was phenomenal. So thank you for doing that for us, Al, and welcome to the program today.
Nate, thank you so much for having me. And I'm happy that people were still emailing to this day asking about that. I just want to say to everybody out there, if you missed the NuView conference, you missed the best conference of 2022 so far. There had to be over 150 people there. And what was also impressive, and this is a tipping the hat to NuView. One of the hardest things to do at a conference is to keep people on day 2, right? Everybody shows up on day 1, but day 2 was a completely different set of things with lending and loans and all of the private lending stuff, which was amazing. So hats off to NuView. Thank you again, NuView, so much. Everybody, Nate, Brian, the whole team, Thomas, the head, everybody. It was a fantastic conference. So make sure you go next time they have it and get a booth there. It was awesome. So
yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate that. And we will be having another one. I've got Grace sitting next to me. We've already been talking about this morning. We're going to lock down a time and a date and a place, and we'll have those announcements shortly. So thank you for that, Al. And I will tell you through the presentation, guys, if you have questions for either me, if it's IRA related, or Al, go ahead and type those questions into the chat box. I'll be reading them while Al is presenting. If it's relevant to what Al's talking about, I'll just jump in and chime in and see if Al wants to take it, or we'll just address the questions at the end. But if you've got a question that pops up, type it in there. We will get to it either right then and there or at the end of the program. Al, if you're ready to take it away, brother, take it away.
Ready to go. I'm going to share the screen, and I want to say Grace, she did an awesome job too. The whole team did. It was amazing. So we'll be there again. We had a lot of fun. I think she made an appearance.
She's there.
Hey, there she is. Great job, everybody. So I'll take it away, Nate. While you were doing your PowerPoint, I pulled up a different PowerPoint and I looked at it real quick and I was like, wait a second. No. That's not the one I wanted to show today. And I found it right when you were introducing me, and I got the right one because I have something different. I have something different I want to show your audience, and I'll give them a little bit of a taste with it, but we're going to talk about probate and why it's the best niche. So I'm going to share the screen. Here we go. Everybody knows I'm on tour from NuView now. I'm on the probate tour, crushing Florida probate. So I'll begin. I'll dive right in, and I know you'll let me know when I've hit my mark, but I'm going to try to get everything in as I can. Awesome. Hey, everybody. My name's Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and I think probate is the best niche that is around, especially in the real estate market in Florida. There's so many things to talk about it. We won't be able to cover it all today. This is actually a little different than the one I did before because, I got to give the most value to NuView. It's all about giving back, and NuView did a great job at that conference, and I'm so happy to be here again. So we're going to dive right in. Make sure you take your cell phone out. This was one of the best things everybody did at the conference. So what they did is I put my number and my email on the screen, and so many people put it in their contact book. So no matter what happens after today, write that number in, type it in, Al Nicoletti, probate attorney or attorney. Make sure you lock it in, take a picture. You can find my website, alnicoletti.com. Find the website, you find all the services and everything that I have going on. This is the biggest thing. This is probably the biggest thing. This is how we stay connected after. Find me on Instagram, find me on YouTube, find me on Facebook, constantly dropping videos, constantly have webinars, videos on the golf course, the beach. I absolutely have a blast doing it. Some people were wondering, how do you still have time to practice law? I do. So it's been a blast. So check out everything, subscribe. That's how you do it. Hit the connect, hit the follow, hit the add. That's how you keep in touch. Social media is the biggest thing for me right now, and it's blowing up. But this is also big. This is the Al Nicoletti Show, which is live on Wednesdays. We're going live for the first time in person in this studio with 3 cameras set up, all going to be alternating. It's going to be crazy. Nate, one day we're going to have you back, and maybe we'll even get Brian Martinez. We'll have the duo here live in person. But I had Nate on my show. Nate could have gone for 2.5 hours talking about self-directed IRAs. It was absolutely a great episode. Can't wait to have him back. But I have so many amazing guests talking about different things in the real estate world. Check it out. Spotify, iTunes. I have everything there. It's on the YouTube channel, and we're live tonight. If you're watching now, we're live tonight in the studio. It's going to be crazy. So I'm a lawyer. Of course, I have to have a legal disclaimer. This PowerPoint presentation does not provide legal advice, nor does it provide any attorney-client relationship. The matters discussed in this video are for educational and informational purposes only. If you couldn't tell already, I'm always ready to go, ready, have the energy to do this whole thing. So it's going to go from start to finish. I'll make sure we cover certain topics a little bit more in depth. But of course, you have questions, save them. We'll get it to the end. Nate will ask. We'll have a blast. So ask your questions. share stories. We want to hear the experiences. We want to hear the good and the bad and the weird, right? Everything. We want to know why it took long. What's the problems? Why you don't get into probate, why you don't touch some of the other stuff, but we'll get into it. Now, these are the different things we're talking about on the NuView webinar today. Obviously, we're going to talk about probate and why it's the best niche. And Nate, I thought about why it's the best niche because that's how we had the title, but I really wanted to find what the answer was of why. And it came to me this morning, and we'll talk about why when I get halfway in. We're going to talk about a little bit about quiet title. What is it? How does it play a role with real estate, and why? How do you find that kind of stuff? Where does it come into play? A little bit about partition. We'll talk about that, and a little bit about trust administration. So what are the reasons probate is an incredible niche? Is you don't have to know anything about it, right? So many of these niches you get in with like syndication, apartment buying, big time purchases, maybe a lot of big flipping and stuff with big time real estate things. You have to know what you're doing and getting really into that niche before you do it, right? You got to have the funding, other people's money, have to have investors lined up. With probate, it could just be you getting into it. You don't have to know big words, terms, complicated things that come with probate. And that's why anybody can get into it. It's why it can be a huge niche because you don't have to know everything. You just find the experts and you work with title companies, you work with the right people, we figure out the puzzle together and we get it done. So that's a big thing that you have to know when getting into probate. You won't even hear me talk about law that much. I don't bring up any case law. I don't think it's even important when it comes to talking about the real estate aspect of things. We'll get into some things about it, but we'll talk about it. So it is a huge opportunity for anybody because the amount that are out there that nobody has gone through, there's thousands. And I talked about this at the conference, thousands of properties that are just still sitting there because the people, the heirs, don't have money to do probate. They don't have money to get the whole process going, but they're sitting on equity. They're sitting on real estate. And that's when you can use the NuView, the tools in NuView with your investing real estate and investing IRA to get into this niche, because this is where you can start making your offers to those heirs, to those sellers where they want to sell the property. And it's waiting for that niche to say, look, the right pitch is, hey, I'm interested in your property. I know you don't have the money for it. You'll find a way to structure it out, and you, the buyer, will help pay for the probate. Or it'll wait until the end at the closing. We'll talk about that. I can wait until the closing to be paid for on the probate. So the investor can pay for the probate, and it's just waiting for the right niche. But the amount out there that have never gone through, that have never been touched, and that have huge margins, that is what is huge about this. A lot of these probate properties, the people own them, they died, but their kids have moved away. The sentimental value has left, and they have gone to Boston. They've gone to California. They have a family, a house and a white picket fence with dogs. They've moved on. And so now when you're the one reaching out to these potential heirs, because the house is sitting in Palatka, because the house is sitting in Hillsborough, Tampa, because the land is sitting in Highlands County, because the parents bought it on the TV auctions back in the 90s, now they're finding out about it for the first time. So when you're getting into this, you're getting into highly motivated deals because people have no more attachment to it. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's recent, but many times with land or homes that have been sitting there for years, it's gone. So that sentimental attachment has left, and now they'll take anything at this point. So they're highly motivated. They lead to incredible margins. There's investor stories. I'll tell you, I have 6 of them at the NuView conference. I think I told like 10 to 15. I don't even remember now, but I have 6 that I'll tell you about. But the one that I don't have is an investor that made $100,000 assignment fee on a probate deal in North Florida. So probates can be big spreads, big assignment deals. They could be small ones with land because land deals are really tight numbers, but you can find amazing deals with this. And I push this so hard. And somebody called me the other day and said, I get it now. I know why this is so important to talk about. It's because the baby boomers like are here. They're living here. They're moving here. There was even a news segment last night that people are leaving other states and coming to Florida or Texas or other states, right? They're leaving and they're coming. And so the stats are getting higher. And I'll quickly show you stats, but the big picture is this is the era we're getting involved in. This is the baby boomer period, the 2020, 2030s, 2040s, the era of people that own property that are over a certain age and they own the real estate in their own name. And that era is really just starting. 2022 is really still the beginning of that curve. And we're heading to that curve really in 2035, 2037. So I'll show you some of the stats. I've talked about this so many times at the presentations, at Jack's RIA, at so many places, the silver tsunami. That's the whole thing that's coming. That's the wave of the baby boomers. A lot of people laugh and smile at that, but we all know it's true. We all know it's true. It's coming. It's here. It's now. So if you get into it, it's great. The stats, these stats are higher. These are pre-pandemic stats. I have to preface it now with that. These stats are pre-pandemic. You know, the amount of people that moved to Tampa, Miami, and Orlando have only gone up. So if a third of the inventory is going to involve some kind of probate, trust, some baby boomer property, you know those numbers have gone up. You know they've gone up in Orlando and Tampa. Tampa's like the #1 market right now. So that's some big stuff to know. If you're getting into probate, know that that shift, that market shift is happening. And so if that's happening here, you can get into it. And that's why it's a really good niche. But another reason probate is another really hot niche, and the best niche in Florida is the fact of timing. If you knew you could get into a niche where your buyers aren't waiting forever on the end of a deal, you would get into it. If you knew you only had to wait 2 months, your buyers had to wait 2 months because you're doing an assignment, or maybe you're trying to do a flip and you're on the clock for something. If you knew that probate didn't have to take forever, and that was one niche that was like, well, we're in and out, you would do it. Everybody wants the deals where they happen quickly, cash deals, as is now, close 30 days. Well, probate doesn't have to be that long either. It could be 30 days. It could be 2 months, 3 months. And that's what I call the massive misconception. Knowing that probate can take a little bit of time, maybe a month, 2 months, sometimes 2 to 4 weeks. It's crazy. These are some crazy times that I've been through with probate, just to show you that if you get into this niche and you take that money from the IRA and you get with NuView and you start investing and getting to some of these big niches that Nate Hare's talking about. Nate talks about some awesome things. And so if you can pay attention to Nate on these webinars, he'll tell you a lot of stuff. He'll talk for hours about this, and he'll tell you that there's so many things you could do with your IRA. And this is one of them. Probate, and getting these things done quickly in probate niches is amazing. We've done things in Tampa in a week. I've done things in Jacksonville 2 days, Fort Lauderdale 45 days, Miami 8 days, Sarasota 2 weeks, 3 weeks in Highlands, 20 days in Lehigh Acres. I've done things in Clay County in a day. And what's my point of showing this to you? Not to tell you about how fast Al Nicoletti gets these deals done. It's to show you that if you get in this niche, you don't have to wait forever on your deals. I've done things in 2 hours. I could talk about that too. But the big picture is when you're going to these sellers and you're saying, hey, look, we came across your property in the property records. It looks like you may be inheriting the property. And they tell you, not even me, they tell you because you're the first one. You're the first one making that connection. They tell you, hey, what even is probate? Now you have a simple explanation. It's transferring the title of who was on the property to the true heirs. You notice I didn't even say the word deceased. It's who owned the property. You could say that deceased from them to the true heirs. That's it. You're just moving the title. And in order to do that, you got to do probate in Florida. I'm not talking about Texas and North Carolina. I know sometimes we'll get comments about that and say, what about Montana and Idaho? I don't know what happens there, but I'll tell you this. In Florida, you're not getting away with it. Those heirs got to go through probate. They can't transfer, they can't sell, they can't convey. They can't even do a refinance without probate. If that person that owned the property, they died, and now there's true heirs, they're transferring the title over, or they do the refinance, you're going to have to do probate. There's no quick claims beforehand. And title insurance is the biggest thing that gets in the way because they don't want to take a chance that somebody else is going to come back and make a claim to that property. So that's the why. We could talk about this in depth, but you want to just take some notes. Always ask who you're talking to. Pull title if you can. Get with your favorite title company, because just today I thought we were going to have to do a probate. And when I looked at the past deeds, the deeds on the record, there was a missing link. And so the first thing I said was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't want to do anything yet with the probate. Why don't you go pull title and let's go find out what's going on first. So pull title, get with your favorite title company, pull title. You can always ask, where's the will? If there is one, are there spouses, children? But for you all want deals, right? Like you want to use the NuView Trust IRA method to get deals. Well, to get deals, you got to make sure you don't lose the deal. And that's making sure that that property is not lost at an auction or a tax deed sale. And we've seen that before. I got stories about this where the investors didn't know, and not because they didn't look, it just didn't come up on the record until the last minute and they lost the deal. Now they're going after the surplus. So not even that, just getting the real estate, but they're going after the surplus now. So the big picture with this is find out some things, ask some big questions. I don't have to go through the whole thing. You want to take a picture of this, go for it, or go back on the NuView Trust, the whole webinar, and watch it again. Make sure we get those views. But just ask these basic questions when you approach probate properties. How many there are, you never know if there's two properties. Just had that yesterday where guy owned property in a middle of Florida county. He dies, but his wife, who also died before him, owned property in her name also. And when she passed, it went to him. So now he picks up two properties. You just never know in this world. You never know. Ask questions, get the big picture. Are there wills? Are there trusts? Are there mortgages? Because reverse mortgages can kill deals. We'll talk about that. Where do they live and reside? Big things like that. But NuView last time loved this slide. I know Nate loved this slide a lot, which was, when do we need probate? When do we not need probate? But also thinking about it from an investor side, right? So on your deeds, when you have title to property and it's only in one person's name and husband's alive and so is wife, and only husband's on that deed and husband dies, if the wife ever wants to sell, there's going to have to be a probate. And people are amazed by that because they've been married for 60 years. Oh, and if they had kids, the wife and the kids, if it's primary, have to be in agreement to sell that real estate. It's crazy. So on an estate planning side, switch your brain over. On the estate planning side, you're thinking husband and wife on the deed together. That eliminates the need for a probate. If husband dies, you're on the deed. Or you have the joint tenants, the rights of survivorship deed, survival of the fittest. 5 people on the deed with rights of survivorship. 4 die. Title moves to 1, survival of the fittest, right? So if you're doing things, maybe if you're not doing JV deals, or maybe you're on sister, brother on title together, whoever lives the longest gets title to the property. If you don't have that language, if you don't have the language there, that means somebody's going to need a probate if they die. It's crazy stuff in the world of probate and estate planning. Like the probate world is how I see the estate planning world, even though the estate planning world is totally different. Drafting is crazy. Ladybird deeds, a lot of people hear about them, retitles the property, avoids probate. Ladybird deeds avoid probate. And that means they own it for their life and transfer the title over. So one of the reasons I think it's a great niche with probate is you learn a lot of these things when you get into deals. Then you learn about this stuff and you think about it for your own personal life or family and friends. So you see these things more and more when you get into the niche. And we'll talk about that too. Trusts avoid probate, but if they're incomplete, they're poorly drafted, you can't find the trustee, you didn't name enough trustees, you still are probably going to have to get an attorney to figure out that problem. And people are amazed by that. I did a trust. Doesn't matter. If the trust was incomplete and the title insurance company can't close, or they don't have the right people with authority, it's not closing until it's fixed. And so what does that mean for you on the estate planning side? Make sure your trust have multiple trustees. Make sure they have all the pages. Make sure they're properly executed. It's wild out there, the kind of things we see, but probate usually is needed. But if you have these mechanisms in the box, they may avoid probate. So think about it on your estate planning end. It's really interesting stuff. Wills do not avoid probate. And people are amazed by that, right? People are amazed by that. The best niche in all of real estate, because you find out later that even if you have a will, doesn't avoid probate. It only guides where probate goes. So it's crazy to see how many people think that wills avoid probate in Florida. But the reason a lot of people do wills is to make sure that if they have 5 children, but they only want 2 to get it, as long as there's no surviving spouse and minor children, or if there's no homestead property, they just want them to get it, they pick it, well, great. People want to choose where their assets go. So that's why a lot of people do wills. I do newsletters, and I just did a newsletter on what happens if you don't have a will, right? If there's a will, picks who gets what, where it goes. But if there's no will, they die without a will. They create the Florida statutes create an inheritance line, and people thought it was absolutely funny and crazy when I came up with the probate MACARENA, which is a simple, I can't do it on the screen because you can't see my hands. It's not the same on Zoom. It's not the same. That's why I got to come back to NuView webinar and do the probate MACARENA, or the conference and do the probate MACARENA. But basically, it's a way to remember who you're looking for, right? So I do this because I know what sticks, and what sticks are these things like the MACARENA. Because when you do the MACARENA, when you go to a seller because you're interested in probate, you're always looking, is it spouse? Is it spouse first? No spouse, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, none of those. Parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, none of those. Brothers, sisters, half-brothers, half-sisters, nieces, nephews. The line can keep going on and on and on. And for the first time ever, I have a probate we're about to work on right now, no heirs. And people are like, whoa, what happens? We had a genealogist perform an entire search of the family line. He did the full MACARENA. He did the MACARENA plus. He went beyond that. He went to like the second line and looked beyond that and found nobody. And we're about to do that whole experiment. And that's why it's fun, because like, what happens with no heirs? What do you do? And we're about to figure out how to get that property sold. It's going to be a wild adventure. I can't wait to recap that when we go back to the conference. I put this stuff up there just so you know, the deals can get done. Everybody hears about creditors, but these deals can get done. And guess what? The sellers can wait for their money later if they want to. And we just figure out a way to hold it in trust. So everybody hears about, hey, Al, don't you have to wait the whole 90 days? Well, we have a way to get around it where the property gets sold. So your buyers are not waiting. You're not waiting. That's the big picture with that. All you have to know with homestead, if it's the primary residence, they live there, they reside there, all on contract. That's what you have to know with homestead. Any difference with reverse mortgages and mortgage foreclosures? Well, with reverse mortgages, that means that person who had that mortgage died. And now there's heirs. The banks usually give about 30 days to about a year to redeem that payoff. But here's something you have to know. If you get into reverse mortgages, it is very difficult to get the payoff. Very difficult. And if you're able to get the payoff, you better make sure that it is lower than your contract purchase price, because those reverse mortgages can be crazy high numbers. But with regular reverse mortgages, you can even go check what those payoffs are in the court records. A lot of this is public record, right? A lot of everything that we talk about is public record. That's what's beautiful about Florida, beautiful about the real estate niche. Everything's out there. You just got to dig and work with the right people that go find it. And I've done this. I wanted to talk about this real quick. I just did a probate in South Florida where it ended up being, we thought it was 2 probates. That means somebody had died before somebody else, then we had to do a second one. Then title comes back and we find out we have to go back to 1985 and do a probate of that person as well. And everyone's thinking like, how complicated is that? We filed all 3 probates at the same time and got them done generally around the same week. Done. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to feel scared about getting in this. We can do these all simultaneously and figure out a way to do it. And that's what's great, is that it's a puzzle. We just got to figure it out, got to talk it out, got to figure out the money, figure it out, get it done. Real estate contracts for probate, there's really not like a probate contract. You use whatever is in your local jurisdiction, Florida bar contracts, NEFAR if you're in Jacksonville, whatever you all use. But at the end of the day, make sure that if you're doing the probate niche, Everybody's on contract and you're bringing it to the title company because the title company is going to have to review that. Underwriting is going to review everything. So that is something that has a big play. It's not just a probate attorney. It's not just the amazing NuView Trust company. It's the title companies as well that you gotta ping around and work with the right people. And of course, working with NuView is the right people. So making an offer, this kind of keeps everything open-ended on a real estate contract because you're thinking, Al, I get into this niche, I find a seller, and now we don't know when we're going to close. How much time should we put on the contract? Look at that line. Closing subject to probate court orders. Whenever the court orders come in. And that kind of keeps things open-ended. It keeps everybody on the same page. So that's a good line. You could put that there. You could put 60 days. You could add extensions of time. It's whatever you want to do. And also no heirs. I'll make sure I recap that one day. But if you ever find a situation, no heirs, these are some great methods that you can find. Get with a private investigator. Get with some of these companies. If you don't have the money to pay for Tampa process, they're a great investigator company that I use. But Skip Matrix, they charge like, I don't remember if it was $1 or 15 cents per lead. I mean, there's things out there that are economically beneficial to use when you do these deals. So if you ever find a situation where you can't find anybody, careful. Rarely happens when there's zero. Even Al Nicoletti found it, but it took like 250 probates to find that. There are methods that can help you. And that's why you get in this niche. It's all about problem solving, finding solutions, and getting in that deal. Clear Skip, that's another company that's really good. But title. Get with your favorite title company because title commitments with title insurance plays a big role. Whether you can close, do you have the right people? What is needed to clear down and get title insurance to the property? Some land investors don't like title insurance, but when you run into weird and sticky situations, title insurance is a good thing to have. It protects you from somebody else coming down the line and making a claim to the property. And you always get a breakdown of the HUD, always get the big picture numbers on those deals. Now, I know I want to cover some other things, but I'm going to go through some stories. I did the top 6. So you had these, right? I have crazy stories all the time. Just had one yesterday, but I want to give you some real life stories I've been through on some of these things. I talked about some interesting ones at the NuView conference, and that's why you got to go back because I'm not going to talk about some of those today. You got to go back to the NuView conference when they do it again to watch that. But I have ones where it is so important that you know who you're talking to. You know, on one of the ones that I had, the guy didn't even know if he was a junior or a third. And you would think, wait a second, probate, it's all about probate. Well, if he didn't even know who he was, that's going to affect title insurance. So he had the wrong name on the death certificate because his father was really junior and his grandfather was really senior. But on the death certificate, it said senior. He thought he was junior, but he was really the third. I mean, I can't make this stuff up. Like, didn't even know who he was. Anyway, Al Nicoletti did it really quickly, but then we found out they didn't know who he was. And then we had to go back and reopen it up. The suffix like actually messed up title. The suffix messed up title and we couldn't move forward. So I had to go back and do an AKA. I almost wanted to do AKA the 4th too, just in case. So we did it. We fixed it, got it done like last week. Crazy story. The Young Spring Chicken. This was where some lawyer had the file for 6 months. They sat on the file. They didn't do anything. The investor said, hey, they're calling you. They called me and we did that deal in 2 hours. 6 months versus 2 hours. It was crazy during COVID. So I want you to guess who the Spring Chicken was. Small county, but it actually was crazy. Ever, when you get these deals, you're always asking the sellers, how many people ever, because you never know if somebody had died before or somebody dies after. And that plays a role for you. That plays a role on the complicated part of it and the money side of it, how much room you have in the deal. So that's why asking ever, you'll hear me say that, but someday it'll stick and somebody's going to come up to me one day and say ever. And it's true because you have to know how many people ever. And in this deal, we thought there were 3. There ended up being 10. They all signed the real estate contract. We got that deal done really quickly. Title took 2 months to close, but it was a crazy, crazy story. I've even had deals where the buyer still can't believe they own the property because we had a missing heir. And that's the big picture with this one. We were still missing somebody. It was unique. It was unique, but we were missing an heir and we still got the deal done. And it actually took about a week and we got everything through. It was crazy. We had a looming tax deed sale. And I had another one. This was a commercial land deal. And we were talking about deaths from 1958, probates that had never been done since 50, 60, 70 years ago. And you know what? They went to like 4 different lawyers. And I'll tell you this was crazy. 4 different lawyers. Each one of them always said, oh, yeah, we'll do it. 3 months later, I don't know, there's a problem. And every one of them said the same thing. Then we get it, 6 probates that we have to do. It took 6 months because you can imagine the tree was so crazy. But guess what? Still got done. Great deal. Crazy stories, right? Why is it the best niche? Because you can be involved in crazy, crazy stories that you can tell. And you know, when they're successes, they're amazing stuff. We've seen things with half sisters, all half sisters, the tale of 2 wives. They didn't know which wife was the wife. And the guy left her and married somebody else. And they were still married. They weren't legally separated. And we've seen crazy stuff where the first probate was easy. But then the second probate, we were missing 2 heirs and we had to figure out the tale of 2 wives. Which wife took precedent over the other. We still got it done, but it's crazy stuff. I can't make this stuff up as we go. Always tell them you make it smooth. The transition is easy and you make it understandable. And you know the best Florida probate attorney. I wait until closing to get paid. I get them done pretty efficiently. And my name's Alan Nicoletti. And on the probate end, that is the big thing for me, but I'm not done. I'm not finished yet unless I get kicked off. I want to talk about a few things that are really key on why this is the best niche of all time. Best niche. So you know where to find me. You know where to get me. That's the contact info, the big key that a lot of people love. Wait until closing to get paid. But find that newsletter right there. We'll make sure. These are some things you just have to know. Because probate leads you into these different worlds. That's why it's so cool. When you get into probate, you get into these different, like, what is that? What's partition? What do you mean somebody wants to sell, the other person doesn't want to sell, and the other can force the sale? You find these crazy things, like you find a probate, but 2 heirs want to sell and 2 heirs don't want to sell. Can they force the sale? They could if they wanted to. Could they sell their interest? They could to you if they wanted to and force the sale. So we see crazy things. Probate is like the gateway into the weird and the different. And so when you get these crazy deals, whether you find them through your leads, you use the self-directed IRA to get into these leads, and you think, oh, we don't have everybody on board. There's these weird worlds of partition. One wants to sell, the other doesn't want to sell. So this is the situation. If you find a seller situation, one wants to sell, the others don't want to sell, don't let it go just yet. Take a deep dive into see what are the options. Is it expensive? Yes. Is it kind of long? Yes. It has to fit your model, but really, really interesting stuff. It can go to auction. It can go to listing. It can go to sale. I know Nate's thinking, wow, what is this thing? These are just basics about partitions. I don't have time to dive into this today, but if you ever want to watch the webinar or come to the next NuView conference, I'll be there. We could talk about some of these things. And we've seen crazy spreads on some of these deals, crazy stuff. We've seen quiet title. What in the world's quiet title? And you find quiet title comes up with tax deeds. So Nate was talking about how you can use the self-directed IRA to buy tax deeds. Well, if you buy a tax deed and you want to sell it to somebody within 4 years, title insurance is going to want a quiet title. So that's where this kind of comes in, right? So you purchase a tax deed. Do you always need one? Well, you can wait 4 years. But what happens when you find liens and errors on title? Everybody's alive, no probate. Everybody's alive, but there's judgments. There's legal description errors. There's crazy things on title. Maybe there's a way around probate. Quiet title could be a way around some things in the title world. Is it expensive? Yes. Can it be long? Yes. But could it be another way to solve a deal that nobody may be touching? That's the quiet title world. That's why I want to talk about this. Because what did probate do? Probate Whoa, we find ourselves in a new world about some of this stuff. Like, what's a wild deed? When somebody randomly records a deed on title, I could tell you about some of this stuff from all types of things. But know that when you find weird situations with wild deeds and adverse possession, there are some that know what adverse possession is and some that don't. And it's a different world. But there are these deals all over the place. Don't let anybody tell you there are no deals out there or there's limited deals in Florida. There's things everywhere. It's just a matter if you want to get in the weird and the different all the time. How much, how long? Some of these things are expensive. But the last thing I'm going to cover, because this is also pretty big, probate is one thing, but property titled in a trust. What was I talking about before? If you find properties titled in a trust and the sellers want to sell and they give you the trust and the trustee's missing, non-cooperative, there's missing provisions, there's missing things, the trust is lost. That's where trust administration comes in. It's another way to solve problems, solving issues, solving things that can help you get your deal. Yes. Could it be expensive? Yes. Could it be long? Could it be messy? Maybe it's not worth it. You got to run the numbers. But these are real estate tricky things that come up. Successor trustee issues, trustee resigns, lost trust, wild stuff in the real estate world that you can find through the tax deed world, through the probate world. It is crazy the kind of stuff that you see. Trust avoid probate, but poorly drafted trusts that don't contemplate the future events in time may not avoid a trust administration. And it may be another thing that somebody doesn't want to touch. Maybe you want to get into. And that's why probate's amazing, because it leads you into this world. What did I just do? I led you into this world. That's what the big picture was, Nate. I thought about it this morning and I was like, wow, it's crazy. These stories that we have in the world that we live in with some of these things on title help investors go, wait a second, we can do this. We can get in this. It's possible. So I've seen things about trustees, successor trustees, but here's what you got to do. Add me on the newsletter. If you're not already on the newsletter, I drop knowledge every 2 weeks. I have a mail marketing. I give you some really key stuff that you got to know. It's hard to cover everything on one. Do I do probate everywhere in Florida? Yes, I do probate anywhere in Florida, even the weird and the different stuff from Key West to Pensacola. But this is the big thing again, before I get off. This is the biggest thing of all, social media. Some people are on it. Some people are not on it. I'm on it like everything now. I love it now. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, follow, hit the like, hit the subscribe, watch the replays, watch the videos, watch me talking about adverse possession. We can't really get into that in the webinar, but these are things that you can learn from. I gave you little tidbits and bits about all this stuff. So here we go in the conclusion. So we got the website, we got the show, follow the show. Again, Brian Martinez and Nate Hare. I'm already going to get them on the books. They don't even know it. They're going to be here in person one day. Thank you, NuView. Where's Nate? Thank you so much for having me. I wanted to give you the Al Nicoletti energy course to get everybody all riled up. So I hope that was awesome and helpful.
I'm energized. I don't know about anybody else. I was taking notes here on a lot of the things that you're saying. Because first of all, Al's one of the presenters or the people that we'll have on our program that you learn something new every single time he's on. There's just so much information based on his experience. And what I love about him is that you cannot get this experience anywhere else than talking to a very knowledgeable and experienced probate attorney. I want to tell a story. I have a client that worked with for many years, and I kept thinking back to him each time you said things like, you wind up in this crazy world of, all these things you're showing you. And, where the opportunities lie are often in those crazy scenarios, the things that you got to spend a little time figuring out, because that's where the opportunity is. And that's where most people run from. People run from scenarios that are too complicated, and they just try to find the lowest hanging fruit. And that can work for a lot of people, but I will tell you this specific story. I had a client of mine that he just got a thrill out of figuring out probate issues, figuring out title issues. He for some reason, he felt like it was a challenge to him. But I will tell you, based on the money that was made in his accounts, it paid dividends. He took a $500 education savings account that he had set up for his child, okay, for his son. He had three kids, but this was his oldest son. Set up an education savings account. This is an account that we have at NuView. It works similar to an IRA. However, all the growth is tax-free, provided you use the profits to pay for education expenses. And, his kid was, in Catholic school or private school. He had uniforms and tuition, all this yada, yada, yada. Long story short, he loved trying to figure out these probate issues. And he found some property very, very cheap for $500. This is in Arkansas, I believe. Found these little parcels that he bought. And he figured, well, I don't have a bunch of money in this account, but $500, I can easily turn this from 500 to 1,000. It's easier to double your appreciation on a $500 property than a $500,000 property, somebody would say. So he basically just started flipping these little $500 parcels, and he bought some from the family here and there. Long story short, after about 5 years, he had bought and flipped so many parcels and combined some parcels to sell them on a larger purchase, where he took that $500 education savings account, turned it into $115,000 in an education savings account that, by the way, completely tax-free, that he can use to pay for not only his son's education expenses all the way through college, but his younger children's education expenses. And he said to me, he goes, I'll admit, I made too much money in that account. I was not anticipating to make that much money, because I know my son doesn't need $100,000, but luckily he had two other children that he can pass that benefit onto. But the moral of that story is that he went and looked for the opportunities that were the most complicated, because he thought that's where the less competition is going to be. And even though this is going to be a little bit of a headache, I'm going to look at this as a challenge. And again, it paid dividends. And I just kept thinking back to that as you were talking about, how one should look at probate.
Yeah. I mean, you can see, Nate, that it leads you into a totally different and weird world that a lot of people won't touch. But then everybody wants to know, where are the deals? And then you can find amazing deals when you get into this, but you got to know the right professionals, the right title company, the right people to work with, and have the best NuView company that helps with figuring out how to get your money to do it tax-free and get those deals too.
Let me ask you this, Al. When should somebody contact you or contact a professional to help them do probate? Is it after they find a deal? Is it before they find a deal? When should your services be something that they're looking at, especially if they're using their retirement accounts to take some of this opportunity on?
I think when it comes to probate, when you finally talk to somebody and you get some indication of probate, right? You get some indication something's happening here. I think we're about to get into something. Boom. That's a lead, right?
Yeah.
It's not a hypothetical, it's a lead. So really they can get me at that point, and then we can figure out, do we need to pull title? Like the story I told you that I looked at the deeds. I'm like, got to go to title first, or, hey, could we do this? For the quiet titles and the partitions, those require a more in-depth analysis. So if you find a potential deal, those are the ones that a lot of people won't touch, right? So you got a little bit of time. That's when you do a deep dive. Let's do a deep dive to figure out which way we go. Let's sit down. Let's figure out numbers, title, the problem, options, money, and then you go from there and you make your decision. So each one is different, but no matter what, it's going to require some analysis. But Nate, like anybody can reach me. You call me, you leave a message, I call you back. You email me, I get back with you. So it doesn't matter when it is, I'm always there.
Awesome. Arun, I see that you raised your hand. If you have a question, go ahead and type it into the chat box. Or if it's something you want to touch base with Al, he left all his contact information on there. But I saw that you raised your hand there. I want to circle back. You had kind of mentioned, the presentation that you gave at our investor retreat, which was phenomenal. For anybody who attended and anybody who may have missed it, we're actually going to have the program. We recorded the entire 2 days. We're going to have that available probably within the next 30 days or so on the website for either purchase or download. If you bought a VIP ticket, you already get a copy of the presentation we'll be sending out to you, but that's a great way to go back and relearn what you heard, or just, if you missed the event, great way to get all the content and all the speakers information. Because I will tell you, my favorite part of the whole event was Al's rapid fire, the stories, because the story, they're entertaining, but they all have a lesson to them. The double baby mama story. I mean, they're stuck in my head. The double baby mama story. I think the other one was the Cuban probate crisis. I mean, these are like seared into my head because they were so entertaining, but that's how you learn. And Al makes it, friendly. For other people, because I know a little bit more about what you do, Al. What are some other services that obviously that you're not promoting here, but what are some other services that you and your team have for real estate investors other than probate?
And the ones that I covered really at the end are the big ones. So probate, we know, is number one, but we get into the quiet titles. So when you have those situations, maybe it's a tax deed, maybe it's a legal description error, maybe it's a wild deed. You're like, what is that still? Check out the video. But I have partitions and trust administration. I'm like the title fixer. So you got something coming up that's crazy and weird, we'll look at it. Also foreclosure defense. Foreclosure defense, when it comes to the auction, is on February 9th, and you got the seller and you're ready to go under contract with them, and they're going to get money from that and pay. That's going to be also huge.
Awesome. Where could we expect to see you next? Where's your tour headed now?
The tour is headed, I'm going to West Palm Beach on Saturday. So West Palm Beach is next Saturday? I'm going to a podcast on this Friday, but then in February, I'm heading to some RIAs in Florida. I'm going around in March. I'm going around to masterminds and all other RIAs. I mean, I'm just going around. I'm going to keep promoting it on Facebook and just putting out the stuff on Instagram and everywhere. So everybody's going to stay up to date.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we run into each other. I know me and Brian are headed to the DRIA meeting that they're having next week. So we'll be down in Dade County for anybody who's interested in coming out and seeing us there. I noticed that you were at a RIA that I wasn't familiar with. I was going to ask you about it. Might as well ask about it now. It was, I want to say, the Northwest RIA. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was the REIG of Northwest Florida, Heather Blatz.
Yeah.
She's running a great group over there in Northwest Florida, and they're doing crazy good stuff over there. They got a great investor base, and I was so happy to go over there.
It looked like a great group from the pictures. I added her. I need to reach out and see if anybody's interested in self-directed IRA stuff, because we'd love to go talk to new groups, especially if they're in Florida.
Yeah, no, she did. She's phenomenal over there. They got a great thing going on. I had a blast. Fun fact for you, Nate, I drove there on Monday night. I stayed overnight. I went to the beach. One of the beaches over there is like nobody there. It was beautiful. The sand is totally different. And then that same night I did the presentation, and I'm crazy. I drove back that same night. I got back at 2:30 in the morning. That's called being on the Al Nicoletti tour.
That's insane. For anybody who's watching, make sure that you follow Al. I follow him on everything that he showed there, YouTube, Facebook. Great information. I love the fact that when your stuff goes out, I mean, you've got some longer podcasts and things like that, but a lot of the videos that come out, they're like quick hit. It's like, hey, did you know this about this? And hey, did you, really quick, really informational. So I highly suggest everybody to make sure you follow him, like his page, get notifications turned on, because you always can learn something. Guarantee you'll get something from Al that you'll learn something new you did not know the day before. And the thing about experience is what you get after you needed it. So it's important to stay in touch with the people that have experience. Al's got a tremendous amount of experience. And we look forward to doing more with you. And we look forward to the next investor retreat, so you can just drop some more knowledge on us.
Yes, I'm ready for whenever those dates come out. Like, I'll be probably the first one that signs up. I'm all in on NuView and what y'all are doing. So thanks so much again, Nate, for having me. The whole NuView team, Grace, you're amazing. Brian Martinez, you all are amazing. Tom. So thank you all so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Al. We'll definitely have you on another program. And again, make sure to follow Al. Make sure to reach out to him ahead of time. If you ever need anything, you want him on speed dial in case he needs to get to working for you. Again, thank you, Al. And thanks for all that you do.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a good one. See you guys, and stay tuned for our next Wednesday workshop next week. Take care.